Hi guys. Alright, so this is my second time recording this video today. The first time I recorded it there was no sound, so hopefully you guys can all hear me. So from what I was told, you guys should all have gotten some notes into your notebook about 12.1, graphing on the coordinate plane. So today we're going into, this is 12.2, so we can put 12.2 up here, if I can write 12.2, and this is independent and dependent variables. Alright, so independent variable, when you think about the independent variable, it causes a change in the dependent variable. Okay, so one affects the other. So that's dependent variable. So as you move from the independent down to the independent affects the dependent variable. Okay, so down here, dependent variable changes are caused by the independent variable. Alright, so if someone ever asks you which one affects the other one, the independent variable affects the dependent variable. Alright, and down here, changes are caused by the independent variable. Alright, so let's look at a little situation here. It says Jackie tested how the height of a ramp affected the distance a toy car travels. Alright, so what you have to figure out is what part of this is your independent variable and which one is the dependent variable. Alright, so basically you have two things here. You have the height of a ramp, and then you have the distance a toy car travels. Alright, and even in this situation it says the height of a ramp affected, okay, the distance a toy car travels. So we just talked about this. The independent variable affects the dependent variable. So which one is going to be the independent variable here? The height of the car, or the height of the ramp, or the distance a toy car travels? So you fill it out really quick. The independent variable, dependent variable. You can pause the video for a second and then see if you put the same thing that I did. Okay, so for independent variable you should have height of the ramp, alright, and for dependent variable you should have distance a car travels. Alright, so basically whatever your height of the ramp is, it's going to affect the distance that the car travels. So that if you just think about that, if you're playing Hot Wheels or something at home and you're, you know, kids, we make ramps to jump things off of them. Okay, so the higher and higher that ramp gets, the farther and farther your car is going to travel until up to a point. Then it's going to, once you get the ramp too high, all the car is going to do is go straight up and down. But gradually, as you adjust it gradually, a little bit more and more, the height of the ramp, it's going to affect the distance that the car travels, right? Alright, so if you wanted to graph this on a graph, okay, and this is where knowing how to use the coordinate plane comes into play. You have your y values here, your x values here. Alright, so look down here, it says the independent variable is always on the, and this is going to be x-axis. Alright, your independent variable is always going to be over here on the x-axis. So what is our independent variable for this situation up here? It's the height of the ramp. Okay, so we're going to put height. The dependent variable
is always on the y-axis. Alright, so you got to remember this is x,
and y. All right, so my y-axis is going to be distance a car travels. So I'll just turn it sideways. Distance a car travels. All right. So this is what this means basically. Let's say your height of your ramp, your x values you could count by ones, you could count by fives, whatever you wanted to count by on the bottom. But if your height of the ramp goes up a little bit, that's going to affect the distance. So what you're going to eventually graph is a line. Okay, the more the height of the ramp goes, the more you go over, the farther up your distance is going to go. So your line would be, you're going to start a line going across like this. It's going up. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Something that might help you. When I think about independent and dependent variables, I like to think about I, myself, like the letter I for me, I. If you think about independent, it has the letter I at the beginning. So what I think about is I, and if you think about in the world, you yourself can affect many different things. So think of yourself as the independent variable, and as people we walk around on the ground, right? So this would be the ground. This would be like going up into the air. So I like to think of this as where I know I'm going to put my independent variable, which affects this over here. Okay? So that's one way that might help you think about which one is which. All right? So let's flip over the page here. All right. So what you have on the back here, this is just a little practice to see if you can think through. You're going to try to match up each of these independent variables with the dependent variable that would go with it. Okay? So you're just going to draw a line from each one of these boxes to the dependent variable that should match it. All right, so go ahead and pause the video, draw the lines where you think they should go, and then unpause it and see if you got the correct answers. Just remember, guys, independent variable affects the dependent variable. Okay? Alright, so go ahead, pause it. Okay, so what you should have found here, guys, the amount of sunlight, which one would that affect? Your test grade? I don't think so. Would it affect the height of a plant? Yes, it would. So this is what we got to do here. That goes to that. Time spent studying. Does that affect your calories burned or amount of profit down here? No. We're looking at your test grade. Okay, so these two just swap over. Minutes spent exercising. Well, do you think that's going to affect your amount of profit or your calories burned? That's going to affect the amount of calories burned. How long you exercise, it affects how many calories you're going to burn. Numbers of tickets
sold, that's going to affect how much profit you make. Okay? So these are all their independent variables up here, and how they affect the dependent variables are all down here. Alright. So let's go down to the bottom here. It says Carly earns $9.50 for every hour she works. So basically one of them, the hours she works, and then you have $9.50. Well, that would be your money earned basically, okay? So you need to think about this. The independent variable, would that be the number of hours she works, or would it be the money that she earns? Okay, so which one affects the other one? So you need to think, the number of hours that I work, does that affect how much money I earn, or does how much money I earn affect the number of hours that I work? Well, the number of hours worked affects how much money you're going to make. So this would be hours worked. And then down here, this would be money earned.
because this affects this. So bad E here. Okay, money. All right. So what is the relationship between independent and dependent variable? Well, basically they want you to state this in using words here. So the more hours Carly works, what happens? The more money she earns. Okay? Which is good because most people, when they work more, they want to get paid more, right? So over here it says you can show the relationship between the independent and dependent variable in this is going to be a table and an equation. All right, so here's my table. Now my x values, remember x values has to be what? Independent or dependent variable. We talked about that on the other side. Your x value has to be the independent variable, so this is your hours, and your y would be money earned, your dependent variable. Okay, so let's go ahead and just fill this in with 1, 2, and 3 hours. So, all right, if you worked 1
hour, you're gonna make $9.50, right? Okay. If you work 2 hours, what are you gonna do here? Well, you would take 2 hours times $9.50, right? So 2 hours times $9.50, it's gonna be $19. And 3 hours times $9.50 would be $28.50. Okay, so we need to come up with an equation here to represent this. So when they're talking about an equation, you're going to start out with y is equal to, and basically you need to come up with what did we do to the x value to get to the y. So as you can see here, what am I doing with my x value to get over to the y value here? I multiply 1 by what? 950, right? So I'm multiplying 950 or 9.5 times what? X. Okay? Because look here. I put in 2 for this x right here, so 2 times 9.5 is 19. If I have 3 for the x, I put in 3 for the x right here. 3 times 9.5 would be 28.50. Alright, so this is the equation I can come up from this table. I can generate this equation here. So what we're going to do now, I want you guys to go ahead and use this equation. We're going to do 3, 6, and 9. Those are my x values, right? These are my hours worked on here. Okay? Independent variable. And this is my money earned. So I want you guys to go ahead and graph this. So remember, these are my x values here, these are my y values here. So if I put in 3 for x into this equation, that would be 3 times 9.5, and I'm going to get, well, we already figured it out, 28.50. So I would go over 3 and up 28.50, but you know, somewhere around here. Alright, I want you guys to go ahead and do 6 and 9, and then you're going to connect those lines, connect those dots. You should have a line that's going upward. Okay, because the more hours you go over, it makes sense that your line's going to keep going up and up because you're making more money, right? So go ahead, graph that, and then let me look at it and see if it looks similar to what I have. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask me, and I'll help you. You know, I'll explain some stuff to you if you need any explaining. But